Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Alex Paul from InvestorStream, and I'll be your host today. Presenting for you today is EIQ's Chief Operating Officer, Philip Wolfe, Commercial Officer, Dion Stridham, and Incoming Chief Executive Officer, Dustin Haynes, who will give a brief overview on the company's progress before a Q&A following the presentation. Questions can be submitted either through the questions section on Zoom or by emailing me at alex@investorstream.com.au. We'll attempt to get through as many questions as time permits. Finally, a copy of the webinar will also be available on EIQ's website and social media platforms later today. But for now, I'd like to throw it over to Philip to kick things off for us. Philip, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Alex, and welcome everybody. It's been a couple of months since our last webinar, and we're excited to be speaking to you all again today. We've got a number of new shareholders joining us today and a number of institutional investors. Welcome to you all. Before we really kick off, just a couple of sort of obligatory housekeeping pieces. Obviously, there are a number of items. Dion, if you could just advance, that'd be great. We've got just the usual disclaimers around forward-looking statements and a quick corporate snapshot for you. So as of close of business yesterday, EIQ was at 22 cents. It's up 0.5 cent today. Market cap is around 130 million. We finished the last quarter in a strong cash position following our recent capital raise at 7.1 million. Shareholder breakdown is as you see on the screen here, with the board of directors in the top 20 holding about 47% of the company, and a little over half held by other shareholders. We've got continuity with our board of directors and management team. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to really introduce Dustin Haynes, who is our incoming CEO, who joins us in January next year. Welcome, Dustin.
Well, thank you, Philip, and hope everybody can hear me okay. I am in Omaha, Nebraska at the moment. For those, I'll have to pick up a map and look at where that is on the United States, but having a great time getting out and meeting some of our key partners. And just a quick welcome for everybody who's joined after the Melbourne Cup the day after. So for some of those who are a little more blurry-eyed with some bloodshot, I understand there's probably a lot of fun yesterday. Look, we want to take a few minutes, introduce myself. Obviously, coming in January, but having a chance to get my feet under the desk as we speak and getting to know some of our customers and understanding the U.S. market team before we start, which is a great opportunity for me. But we'll take a little bit of time today to talk a little bit about myself, but also more importantly, the vision that we're going to set forward for the company, what our mission really is and what we do. Dion's going to take a few minutes to show what we've accomplished up to this point and what we are working on post the FDA clearance. And then, of course, we'll open up for questions, and we look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. So a little bit about myself. I come in with well over 25 years of global commercial leadership, and we put a map here because I've been incredibly fortunate in my career to work around the world and manage very large businesses, whether it's in the U.S., Europe, all across Asia, including the Middle East, Turkey, and Russia, where I've had a chance to not only bring novel products to the market, but really refine my skills on how we put together a go-to-market strategy. Now, these are incredibly important things that we're going to be able to leverage here at EIQ as we start to think about how we're going to commercialize our first product for aortic stenosis. But more importantly, what are we going to do as we start to think about our long-term strategy for going to market across the globe? Now, one of the things that I'm incredibly proud about in terms of what I've done in my career is building high-performing teams. And I know we've had a few questions from investors in the past around, how do we make sure that we're going to be successful? And I can tell you there's two things you're going to hear from me. One is laser-focused priorities and building in high-performing teams around the business. Because when you get really good high-performing individuals with a very clear focused strategy, really good things will happen. And that's what we're going to continue to focus on going forward under hopefully my new leadership. So if we can take a moment and go to the next slide. One of the things that I'm recognizing we probably haven't done really well is tell our vision of what we want to do as a company. And the reason this becomes incredibly important as a company is when you have a vision, it makes it really easy for us to understand where we're going to go for the future. That helps us understand what type of partnerships we're going to look at. It helps us understand what kind of R&D investments we're going to make. And it helps us to be really focused about what our future goals will be. And we haven't probably shared that really well in the past. So in going forward, you're going to hear from us our vision. And it's a very simple vision. We believe that Echo IQ has the potential to become the world's leading health tech company, where we'll focus on AI to reduce complexities in the diagnosis of cardiovascular disease. This is really important for us because it becomes very clear what we focus on. And we are going to be laser focused on bringing our aortic stenosis, which is already FDA cleared, into the market and commercializing it, and getting our heart failure submitted and into the market. Very clear and aligned to our vision. So how does that meet to what our mission is going to be? This is important for me because it really starts to talk about what this product is going to do. And our mission really is about tackling one of the biggest challenges in healthcare. And for any of you, who have done some research, you know that cardiovascular disease is still the leading cause of death around the world. In fact, for every one of us, we know we have a mother, we have a sister, we have a brother, we may have a niece or a nephew or a cousin who has had to go through this challenging disease. And it is a devastating disease. And our mission is to help more people get matched up with right life-saving treatments for their cardiovascular disease. And we're going to set an ambitious goal out here that we believe in the next 4 to 5 years, we're going to impact over 1 million lives with our technology. And one of the things that we're working on internally is to ensure that not only does our technology meet the demands of the market, but it still has that ability to affect people's lives. And that's something that's critically important for us. So what we do, and this is for every one of us, whether you're an investor with us, whether you're a fan of the technology or you work for the company, what is it that we can say we do so that other people really understand? Because we have to really take a complex thing such as artificial intelligence and this innovative technology and bring it down to a very simple level of what we do. And that first sentence, I think, and I don't need to read this to you, but that first sentence will really be important because it talks about the fact that far too often the diagnosis of heart disease and heart failure is happening too late or sometimes not at all. And this is a progressive disease. And for many people who don't have that medical intervention early, it can lead to a high rate of mortality. So the important part about making sure what we do is bring that artificial intelligence to those healthcare professionals to help them treat those patients. And at the end, this is the last sentence that makes the most sense for all of us, is it gives clinicians a greater confidence, healthcare systems more efficiency, and patients improved opportunities to access life-saving solutions. So you can see that we're starting to put that picture together for what we really do as a company and the vision we have so that we can be laser focused and really be intent on delivering the aortic stenosis and the heart failure for the communities that we serve and ensure that every single patient has a chance to get that diagnosis earlier and the medical intervention sooner. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to Dion to give you guys a quick snapshot of what we've been able to achieve so far.
Thank you, Dustin. So a lot of this you would have seen before, but we just want to do a recap on some of our achievements to date. So firstly, if you break down the clinical validation, you can see all the publications that we've done there on the left-hand side. And so what this really shows you, we've now got clinical validation in both Australian settings and in the US settings. So this underpins our technology and also the credibility of our technology in the market. So with both the US and the Australian clinical studies underway. If you look at the reimbursement strategy, we've always maintained that this is a priority for us. We've appointed specialist consultants, and they've really been helping us with preparing a dossier that gives us the best chance of success in the market. Now, reimbursement is also one of Dustin's areas of strength. So he's helping us make sure that this dossier meets the guidelines and meets the criteria to give us a good chance of success. From an imaging software partnerships, and we'll expand on this in a second, we've got signed integration agreements with SciImage, StudyCast, and Encapture MD. So what does that mean? It allows us to have simpler and faster integrations into the market, but more importantly, it also gives us broader coverage around hospitals and clinics. And then from a commercial readiness perspective, we've got a strong pipeline. Dustin's in Omaha at the moment speaking to our distribution partners, Castling. They've been trained. And then we've expanded our US footprint as well by appointing a medical science liaison. So this is a person who can support the technical discussions in the absence of Professor Jeff Strange and Professor David Playford, who've always been in Australian time zones. So all of this has led to the culmination of the FDA clearance that we received in October, which we're very proud about. And so the question is then, what have we done since that clearance? So a quick progress update since FDA clearance. From a clinical validation perspective, we have fast-tracked the approach for our heart failure studies, and we're in advanced discussions with the Mayo Clinic. This is another premier logo in the US. Most of you will know about the Mayo Clinic. And once again, if we can secure this validation study with the Mayo, this gives us instant credibility amongst the core market which we have, which is the US. From a reimbursement strategy perspective, a really key aspect that we've managed to secure here is we've secured a key opinion leader, so KOL support, to represent our technology in front of the insurers. So this is a very prominent cardiologist who's willing to put his name and reputation behind our technology to support this in front of the insurers. He's also provided us with a letter of medical necessity, which actually speaks about why this is important, our technology. And we're finalizing the dossier preparation, which will go in a moment now. And that's the submission for our Category 3 and our miscellaneous codes. For our imaging software partnerships, as you know, those agreements have been signed. So what we are doing now is one or two of those companies want to tailor some of the offerings on how it gets displayed to their customers. So we're supporting them on those integration, giving them support around that. And then also my role is absolutely to ensure that we can sign additional integration agreements. We believe this is the easiest way for us to scale across the US. So that's certainly a priority focus for me and our team at the moment. And then last but not least, commercial readiness. So we currently have a few hospital integrations underway. We're also expanding our US footprint with another headcount, and this will be a clinical field specialist. So this will be a person that helps our facilities to support the integration. And then we've got a pilot agreement with a device manufacturer, which commences next month as well. So that's been a quick overview of what we have achieved up until now, and then also what's happened since FDA clearance.
Great. Thanks, Dion. Yeah, and I know many of you have asked, what is our roadmap for heart failure? And we have a really interesting opportunity here. And as many of you know, that heart failure is an area that, well, aortic stenosis does solve a problem, and it is a big problem. Heart failure is a very large problem, and for the most part, many physicians oftentimes diagnose heart failure at about a 50%, positive predictive value rate in terms of what those patients are presenting with. And our data so far has shown a much improved to that, almost a doubling of that. So we know that this is a very, very key part for the expansion of our business. So there's a few things that happen during a submission rate. Right now, we're anticipating that we will submit what's called a pre-sub submission sometime in Q4. Now, there's a lot of things that get in the way of Q4, which includes holidays. So we know that in the U.S. there are major holidays such as Thanksgiving and Christmas that can slow some of this down from a review committee perspective. But we anticipate having a pre-submission in by Q4, which allows us to have a close-it-out meeting by the end of Q2, and you can kind of follow the lines here to when we expect to get clearance. We're very excited about the opportunity for this because we believe heart failure continues to expand our portfolio, continues to find opportunities to help those patients in the most need. And of course, as we work through many of these discussions with the FDA, exploring other alternatives such as breakthrough technology that we will be having discussions with the FDA as well. And we'll find out more about that in the early part of next year, whether our technology meets those criteria. And you can see that a big part of this is making sure we have a data set, validation, and reimbursement strategy in place now prior to that submission. So we'll be looking at doing that submission sometime at the end of this year, early next. So what do you expect as a follower of the company and investor? What is coming next? I think we have a couple really interesting news flows that we anticipate having over the next several weeks. One of them is, as Dion mentioned, that there is a pilot program that will be kicking off in Australia with a leading device manufacturer, where we will be implementing our technology in many of the hospitals in Australia to see whether or not we can continue to identify new patients where it might lead to medical intervention. So this is a really big study for us because it's a proof of concept for what may be a strategy that we roll out across the United States. We also have negotiations underway, and I think we'll be able to announce this very quickly, of a major flagship hospital in the United States to have our first integration. And this will be a major teaching hospital that many people will recognize. And we're just in the early stages of the integration, and we anticipate that happening before the end of the year. And of course, we just talked about the heart failure validation study with the Mayo Group. That is an important study for us. and it is an important customer who has a lot of validity in the U.S. market and really globally as a major teaching institution, and institution that runs very strong clinical studies on our behalf. We also have a really interesting opportunity to talk about a European reseller. So those are in early discussions now, but we anticipate that as we look to expand across other geographical regions, that Europe will be an attractive opportunity for us to partner with the company. And we're having early discussions, and Dion's doing a great job there with them and moving that discussion along. And then finally, looking at CE marks across Europe would also picks up the TGA application in Australia so that we can continue to establish our global footprint, because we do believe that this technology has a global impact across many different institutions around the world where we can help patients and save lives. And I think Dion has one more exciting information that just came hot off the press.
That's right. So the final slide before we get to questions, this kind of flew under the radar in Australia, but this is a really, really big deal everywhere else. So this was presented Monday, the 28th of October in Washington at TCT, which is a conference, the Transcatheter Cardiovascular Therapeutics Conference. And essentially what the study was funded by, obviously a large medical device company. And what the findings were is they had to have a look at what is the difference if you intervene in a patient earlier in the disease progression versus waiting for them until they are severe. And the findings were that the heart outputs, which is a cardiovascular event, if you intervene early, there's significant improvements in that heart endpoint. And so this is really, really crucial for us, because what this means is that it may not mean anything right now today, but we know that there's 3 large device companies right now with a group that's lobbying Washington to have the guidelines changed. And the missing piece of the puzzle up until now is they didn't have the evidence to support that. And this now clearly gives them the evidence to say, hey, there's real benefit in intervening early. And to the best of my knowledge, Echo IQ is the only one that can not only show patients that are earlier in that progression, we can also show how the disease progresses, which we refer to as the phenotype of the disease. So this, if the guidelines do change, and once again, I want to iterate, I don't think they'll change tomorrow, but this is the missing piece. When they do change, we will be perfectly poised to be able to offer a solution to these hospitals and implanters who want to find the patients earlier.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dion. Thank you, Dustin, for the introduction and the update. We have had a number of questions through, and so if everyone's okay, I'm going to actually throw those out to our panelists here. Dion, I think following on from what you just wrapped up with, we've had a question from somebody who asked us about our competitive position versus some other products that have been FDA cleared using AI in cardiology. Could you share a few thoughts on sort of how we sit versus some of those players in that space?
Sure, thanks, Phil. And this is an important question because it comes up quite a bit, right? So there are absolutely other players in the market that have AI for echocardiography. And so what you have to try and see is who's a benefit to. So a number of the companies that are out there are currently FDA cleared for AI in echocardiography, the benefits to the sonographer. So what they do is they help guide the sonographer to take a better quality image and a more accurate image. And that's really important because the more accurate that data is, the easier it is to make an interpretation. So that AI helps guide the sonographer. So the benefits to the sonographer. Whereas what ours does is our benefit is to the cardiologist, right? So the main benefit is we can help interpret the echocardiogram. We do that faster. We do that more accurate. And we do that more consistent than a human only, right? And are there other players in that space? Yes, there is another company that does something similar. But our key differentiator for everyone to keep in mind is the company made a deliberate decision not to look at imaging. We only look at the output measures. So where a competitor can perhaps give an output, you're talking hours to get the result, whereas with Echo IQ, the result is only available in 3 seconds. And that is because we don't have to compute all those images. We only look at the output measures. So that's a substantial difference. But I want to say again, the key difference that we offer is that we do automating of the interpretation, and the benefit is to the cardiologist.
Terrific. Thanks, Dion. We've also had a question around team building and culture. What strategies does EchoIQ use to attract and retain top talent, particularly those who exemplify optimism, problem-solving mindset, and a bias for action? Qualities crucial for a successful startup. Dustin, I can see you smiling. You are chomping at the bit, so grab it.
I mean, the question is about as perfect as you can get in terms of where we're at next in our journey. So of course, we're going to be bringing in subject matter experts where it counts. So as we brought in a most recent medical science liaison who can be that clinical expert on the ground, and that will be a subject matter expert. And that person not only has to have the clinical expertise, but also has to have the imaging expertise to really understand how to read an echo and what this tool can do for a customer. And at some point, we'll be able to introduce her possibly to the group. But this is the kind of talent that we will continue to bring in, where we look to make sure that we're leveraging their skill sets, but also the enthusiasm for the technology. Because we believe and strongly believe that not only is the technology cool and exciting and amazing, what it really is going to do is going to help physicians to better and more efficiently diagnose cardiovascular disease and ultimately help patients get on treatment. And if that doesn't get you excited when you wake up in the morning and go talk to a customer, I don't know what will. And that's the kind of enthusiasm we're going to want to bring to the team, because that's something that will drive us every single day. And so we'll continue to look for that key talent. We'll continue to look for that enthusiasm. And hopefully I'll demonstrate that every day as I wake up and I present myself, because that is exactly what we need to do for every single patient out there.
Terrific. Thank you. We've got another question here around the implementation process. So once a sale is made and somebody is looking to start using EchoSolve in their practice or their sort of healthcare environment, how much involvement do EchoIQ staff need to have? Is it a lengthy process, or is it just a switch it on and away you go?
I'll take this one, Dustin. So it's not a switch it on and off you go. So it's about a half an hour integration process. So the key contact that we need to have access to is the IQ department on the other end, or the integrations team. This can all be done remotely. We've got a whole video on how to do that, but we also support them in that discussion. So that's the first part, is the integration. And the second part is how to use it. And once again, what we have in place there is a train-the-trainer approach. We have a single contract in the hospital where we train on how to use the technology. That's an hour training. We also have the videos if they want to do this in their own time. And then just with our medical science liaison, they'll be the person responsible for this. And then the trained person then trains the rest of the department. So it's a tested method. It's implemented quite often in the industry. So not a significant lift from our side.
We've had a question on the webinar today. How much cash do you have? How long will it fund the company? Look, we've released at the end of our September quarter our cash position, just over 7.1 million. You can see recent cash burn is a little over 500,000 a month. So if you extrapolate that out, you get a sense of what our cash position is now. We would expect an increase in cash burn, but not radical. So you get a bit of a sense on that picture there, I think. We've also had a question around sales budgets for 2025. Where are we at in that process?
Yeah, and I'm happy to address. So one of the things we're looking at right now is as a reimbursement, and Dion mentioned that earlier about our reimbursement strategy. So in the U.S., obviously, is a very complex system, and some would argue that it may be a broken system, but it is a system that we have. So we are working through how that reimbursement will play out. So over the next several months, while we're waiting for the Category 3 code, which we believe will be a strong offering for us in terms of what will happen within the hospitals. As we go through integration, we're going to be looking at trying to get our product into the hospitals as quickly as possible. So in many cases, that may be a 90-day free trial where the customers will have access to the tool as we're going through integration and working on our reimbursement. So what we're trying to assess now is how many of those hospitals can we actually bring in and under the fold. And as we've been looking across some of our imaging platforms, such as SciImaging, StudyCast, and CaptureND, these make up about 2,000 hospitals in the United States. So as we work with our imaging partners, we'll be first reporting back how many hospitals have we integrated in and how many of the hospitals have been using our our technology. And then that will lead to a reimbursement discussion about what type of sales opportunities we'll have. And we expect to see some revenue happening in the middle to the later part of 2025 as we integrate in and we get our reimbursement. Of course, for heart failure, that's going to happen much quicker because there is a code that's already existing in the market, and we'll be able to take that opportunity. But for aortic stenosis, we will be working through the government trying to get that reimbursement code, which I believe we have a very good shot of having done fairly quickly given the team's efforts so far.
Thanks, Dustin. Apologies for the background noise. We've got a bit of construction going on in the building, so I hope it's not too disturbing for everyone. Dustin, following on from that point, there's a couple of questions around the adoption of AI in healthcare. What is the length of sort of sales cycle? And I know you've just addressed that. Don't know if there's anything else anyone wants to add on that sort of time frame and that sales cycle. Can be quite a lengthy process. Anything to add from anyone?
And I'll let Dion jump in too. But I do want to mention something that we mentioned kind of early on. There's a number of strategies you have here when you're bringing a software into a health system. Now, as you start to understand what's happening in the health systems today, the IT department is actually becoming one of the major gatekeepers because a number of companies are bringing software programs in, and while I believe ours is one of the best for the cardiology space, there are a number of different softwares that are being used across different therapeutic areas. So we have to understand that going through a hospital system in the RT department could be a backlog of a year or two to get in. Well, I'm very confident, and I feel very strongly that our strategy of using a imaging partner to come in as what we call a piggyback allows us to integrate in much faster. In that case, their software is already integrated into the hospital systems. We can integrate directly into their system, and our report will sit right on their DICOM stack, which is what they use to report their images back to the customer. With this strategy, we will be able to integrate very quickly. That will bring that sales cycle down to a much shorter time frame because it allows us to not have to worry about integrating into a hospital system with a 1-year backlog. So this will reduce the sales cycle down. What does create a bit of frustration in that sales cycle is reimbursement. And that is one of the reasons that I am here in the organization, because we will solve that. We are not great today, but we will be great in the future on reimbursement. And when we get that will allow those physicians to not only use the product, but also get reimbursed and be able to, bill the customer, and then the hospital will be able to get the payment, which is the key part in the U.S. And since it's not a single payer system in the U.S., you've got multiple different payers, and that billing code will allow multiple payers to be able to assist the hospital. So the sales cycle is going to be short at first. We're going to integrate in. I think a number of hospitals will have opportunity. I think our strategy is sound here, and then the reimbursement will follow, which will allow for a much easier revenue stream for us as well as the customers.
Great, thank you. We've had a question in relation to the echocardiogram market overall. What percentage of the echo market does Echo IQ aim to capture, and over what kind of time frame do you expect to achieve this?
No. I'm happy to have a stab at this. So the total market for echocardiograms in the US, if you look at both private echoes and Medicare echoes, is around 20 million. So if you then look at both private and Medicare echoes for just aortic stenosis, is around 6 million of those performed each year. And for heart failure, it's around 7 million performed each year, right? So if you take those two, and then you look at the numbers of hospitals that Dustin has just mentioned earlier that we can potentially get integration with, I'm always hesitant to put a number to it, but you can certainly see, even if you get a 2% uptake on that, right, that's a substantial number of both the aortic stenosis and heart failure market. So that's as vague as I want to be without giving any guaranteed outcomes, but that hopefully gives you a bit of an idea of the size of the market and what the potential is, right? You don't have to capture a huge percentage of this market to be a very successful company in terms of returns.
Thanks, Dion. I've got a question for Dustin. Dustin, how will you leverage your experience in Medtech to enhance Echo IQ's operational excellence and drive its long-term growth strategy?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you guys have heard me say this, but it's going to, I will say it over and over again, and I will be clear. We will be laser focused, and that is going to be the way we ensure short-term success. And we have opportunities. As we look at our research and development, we have opportunities to invest in a number of different areas, and all that's going to be great for long-term, and we will be very focused on what we invest. But today we will be very focused on the short-term, which is the aortic stenosis and filing for our heart failure. So from a go-to-market strategy, it'll be very clear what our focus is going to be. And then how do we make sure we maintain that long-term success? It's going to be about having integration very quickly in hospitals. I think our strategy is sound about how we'll get through our integration, and then ensuring that we have reimbursement across the portfolio. So to me, there's really three critical pieces: laser focus, integration, and reimbursement. And that will be something that'll be a consistent theme across every one of our updates as we come forward on how we're progressing on all three of those. That will be the way that we'll be able to ensure success, not only for the short term, but also for the long term. And of course, for us, we're going to talk to anybody and everybody. There are partnership opportunities out there. There are a number of device companies who are obviously very interested in wanting to make sure that those patients are identified. And there are a number of pharmaceutical companies out there from therapeutic interventions that will be very interested in wanting to ensure that they have a companion diagnostic. So we'll continue, and as Dion is working very hard now to continue to have those conversations with any and every partner in this space, because again, if our vision is set correctly, it's about making sure that we help every single patient who's suffering from cardiovascular disease.
Terrific, thank you. And I think that actually very neatly takes us to the last question that we've been posed today, which is, could we talk through how we intend to build the team? And Dustin, what strategies worked for you in previous roles? And would we consider a value-added reseller agreement with a larger healthcare player to reduce the cash burn incurred by the team? And I know we've got some partnerships already in place. Castling Diagnostics in the US, for example, that may be related. Dustin, would you be able to share a few thoughts on that before we wrap up?
Sure, of course. Yeah, we would be very thoughtful about how we enter the market, but we will be very strategic about how we bring assets into the organization. So right now, obviously in the US, one of the quickest ways to be able to get big scale is to use a distribution partner. And that's where I am today in Omaha, Nebraska, meeting with Castling, which is a very well-known and well-respected contract sales team. And so they have a really good footprint that's going to allow us to be able to scale very quickly without having to go on to a hiring spree of bringing in, our own sales force. And this is a tried and true method. I've done it in the past, and many companies do this to be able to, one, reduce your cash burn, but two, be able to get a very big footprint very quickly with well-known entities and hospitals across the United States. So Castling will be a big part for us there. Another area that we're looking at, and as you've seen, we're going to continue to tell our story, and we're going to expand our story, is bringing in partners who will grow with us. So using one of the well-known tech agencies here in the US who's going to help and grow with us to be able to get our message across, not only on internal communication on training, but also our external communication about who we are and what we do and what we stand for and how do we engage with our customers. So we'll make sure to be vigilant about how we invest our money, but ensure that we also can get the widest impact across the United States. And of course, over time, we will be wanting to bring people in as the right fit and strategically putting people in the right positions that are going to continue to help us grow.
Terrific. Thank you, Dustin. And thank you, Dion. Alex, thank you for hosting us here today. I think that draws our webinar and the questions to a close. As Alex mentioned, we will be putting a recording of this up on our Investor Center on our website and social media, so you'll be able to have a re-listen if you wish, or share it with people. Thank you all for your participation. We really value your questions and your engagement. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dion. Thanks, Dustin. Thank you, Philip. That wraps it up for us here. As you said, have a great day, and thanks for a great webinar.